Okay, welcome to another session here in the experiences track of Valo Fest. Feel free to tweet, go on social media. The hashtag is Valo Fest, as always. What else? There's the chat. So feel free to type your questions in the chat, and then the guys will pick a suitable moment, whether it's right away or at the end. So let's make sure that at least in the end, we have a couple of minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes for questions and answers. Additional questions, just in case we run out of time, there's a hashtag Ask Valo Fest, so you can go with that afterwards. And I think that's it from my side. So as I said a couple of minutes ago, this is one of the most exciting sessions that I have personally been looking forward and waiting for. So here we have partner Creospark together with Special Olympics Canada, talking about their digital journey. So without further ado, go ahead, guys. The stage is yours.
All right. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you all for joining today. So for those of you who are not aware, Creospark partnered with Special Olympics as well as Valo. We partnered with them in a journey to essentially transform the way that the Special Olympics organization communicates and collaborates across the entire country. So today's session is going to be very interviewish style. So it's going to be question and answers between us. And we'd also like you all to join in and ask your questions on the fly. We'll have the chat open for you. So please go ahead, ask your questions, and we can incorporate that into our interview style session today. So essentially what we want to do is get across the message of the thinking behind a journey like this, the understanding, the compassion required, and as well as understanding the different nuances between certain organizations and requirements that you'll begin to uncover when you start a journey like this in your transformation. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce your hosts to you. Of course, the famous Noorez Khamis. He's the VP of Technology at Creospark. He's also a Microsoft MVP and has been around in the industry for many, many, many years. We've also got Denise Strong. She is the Director of Information Systems with Special Olympics Canada. I'm not sure how many years she's been in the industry, but she does know her stuff, so please feel free to challenge her. And then you've got myself, Shafina Hassam. I am the Modern Teamwork Practice Lead for Creospark, and what I do, my passion as well as my profession, is to help organizations adopt the new way of working. So really working with them throughout their journey, making sure they're comfortable, understanding the right concepts, understanding the way that they're going to roll this out to their organizations, and focusing on the end user adoption of these types of projects. We're going to go into first, I'll just go over the session outline with you. So I'm going to introduce Special Olympics Canada to you. Actually, Denise will introduce Special Olympics Canada to you, give you an idea of the structure of the organization. And then we're going to go into discussing some of the challenges that Special Olympics had and understanding, you know, what were the driving factors behind this journey. And then we'll go into discussing some of the solution, and from there, we'll go into a demo, so you'll get to see a really quick snapshot into Special Olympics environment, just so you can get a really good idea of the look and feel of how simple it is, how it's not overkill in terms of too many things going on. A really, really simple solution that we wanted to introduce to you guys. And then, of course, definitely not the least, but the last, lessons learned and the next phase in their journey. So Denise, I'm just sorry to the audience, we're going to keep this slide open for now. This is what the homepage looks like. And so while this slide is up, we will go through a couple of questions. And then, like I said, we'll jump into a demo after this. So Denise, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about the organization?
Sure. Thanks, Shafina. So Special Olympics is an international movement that's global in its reach. And in Canada, we have a federated model so that we have chapters in each province and territory across the country. And each of those chapters are their own organization and independent company. So I'm at the Special Olympics Canada office, where we're only 25 people, but there are 200 people employed by Special Olympics in chapters across Canada. So the other thing too is that often people hear the Olympics word and think that we are just about the competitions, but the bulk of our work is actually done in grassroots programs with athletes and volunteers working on, programs for everyone from 2-year-olds up to 90-year-olds in non-competition settings as well.
Yeah, I think that's really great for people to understand that the Special Olympics is more than just the actual Olympics that happen every 4 years, or that won't be happening for now. But it's really important for people to understand that this particular situation is across Canada, and Canada itself is huge. It's ginormous in terms of its land mass. But the way that you guys are connecting now and the way that you're translating information across the various provinces and the various chapters is really become seamless. And so, speaking of that, Denise, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about, the user base and, the specific needs that they had in terms of collaboration and communication?
Sure. So in terms of the user base, we have at Special Olympics Canada, we have 6 departments in our local office. We have Office of the CEO, Information Systems, Communications, Business Development, Finance, and we also have Sport. And we currently use our local file server for documents and materials to share between departments. But like I mentioned, we have 200 staff across the country in chapters, and there are more than 22,000 volunteers that the chapters manage. And so that's kind of our user base really, is because Special Olympics Canada takes the lead on a lot of different programs. So, we provide the framework for a program for, say, young children, and then the chapters take it and they teach it to their volunteers, and the volunteers go out and they do that programming. So really, we're looking at not just the 25 people in our office, we're looking at 200 staff and then 22,000 volunteers that information has to be distributed to.
Yeah, and that's really incredible. Just taking a small subset of people and making sure that the right information is getting to the right people at the right time. And this is actually a really special case because, the volunteers and the athletes and everyone who's benefiting from all this information are people from all walks of life, especially, certain athletes who have special needs. So making sure that information that's translating to them at the right place and the right time is so important. So Denise, let's see, what is my next question for you? Actually, I'm going to hand it off to Rez. Sorry, Rez. Do you want to talk to Denise more about the Microsoft 365 stack and the journey for that?
Sure. So we'll go into a few technical questions, Denise, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So before we engaged you, how well did you know the Microsoft 365 technology stack and services, and before you engaged with Creospark, and what Microsoft 365 services had you already deployed? And a follow along to that is that, like, what technical problems did you encounter with any of your existing implementations?
Right. So we were aware of the 365 technology stack, but we hadn't implemented very much. We were using a hybrid exchange, and we're using SharePoint as support for our Microsoft Dynamics CRM. But that was about it. We had begun to implement plain SharePoint as an extranet solution, but we were dissatisfied with the results. But we weren't really comfortable enough. We didn't know enough about the product to fix it ourselves. So the existing implementation that we had in SharePoint was difficult to navigate and to manage. And then we also had, in addition, we had communication from the different departments at headquarters at SOC at Special Olympics Canada, distributing information to the chapters, and they were using Dropbox a lot. And so we had various different Dropbox accounts that were owned by different people. People would leave the organization, and then that Dropbox account would go static. There was a lot of different ways of getting information out, and none of them were very centralized. And so we were trying to build this extranet to remedy that, and it didn't really work out for us. It wasn't able to accommodate what we wanted to do in the extranet. And then we met Creospark, and Creospark walked us through the process and helped to figure out what exactly we needed to do, and then brought Valo on.
Thank you. A little bit of a follow-up question to that, and that's where you kind of mentioned we helped you kind of understand the technology stack. But what led you specifically to explore Valo as the solution, and what features, add-ons did you actually like within Valo that you selected?
So one of the things that what we really needed to do was we needed to create in the extranet an area where the chapters could go and find information, but then we could also put in a section where the volunteers could go in and get information directly from us. But we wanted to make it so that the volunteers could not see what the chapters could see. So the chapter information was confidential, but the volunteer information would be less confidential. And so what Creospark was able to do was bring up Valo to us as a way of having a meta menu or mega menu set up, so that we would be able to have menu items available to the chapters, but not to the volunteers, and have different sections available to the chapters at different times and not available to the volunteers, and only roll out to the volunteers when we're ready to roll out. So that was one of the big ones. That was a major sticking point for us that we couldn't do with our SharePoint instance that we'd had before. Am I forgetting anything, Shafina?
I think that's good. We'll go through more details as we walk through the actual site.
Okay, but that in terms of Valo features, I think that was the biggest one that we wanted to make sure that we got, was that mega menu option.
Right, and just to add to that, I think one of the first things you came to us with is that you wanted to create an extranet, and after understanding the feature set, we said, you know what, maybe we will approach Valo. I know that Valo's actually developing an extranet, and they have a great product that's coming out there, but we decided, you know what, let's kind of use the intranet functionality first, and then eventually when we're going to be onboarding all the perhaps thousands of volunteers and athletes, that might be something we consider from an extranet perspective, and managing all the guest users and the usernames and all of that, right? So so maybe to that extent, Denise, what was your experience working with us, Creospark, and Valo together?
It's been an absolute delight working with Creospark. It's been amazing. We've gotten such excellent service and advice, and we're thrilled to have them as a partner. And Valo was very welcoming to us as well, as new clients. And both Valo and Creospark have very graciously become in-kind partners of Special Olympics Canada. And so we're really, really grateful to both companies for their help and their work on our plight kind of thing, to get information out to our chapters and to our volunteers. So we're really, really grateful for it, and are really happy with the experience that we've had. Yeah,
and I could probably speak for Valo too, and you could probably pipe up as well if you want, but it's our pleasure. We really love to help organizations with these types of community needs.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, not much to add there. We're honored to be part of this journey, and hope to do even more in the future.
Yeah,
that's great.
Great. So Denise and Shafina, maybe you guys together, I think this is a good spot for us to actually maybe get you guys to walk through a demo of the solution we've helped you put together.
Yeah, sounds great. I will share my web browser here. Sorry. Okay, great. So as you noticed in the earlier screenshot, this is exactly what I had displayed on the screen to you. This is the home page for anyone accessing this particular page. Now you'll notice that it doesn't look like the typical Valo, Candela themes or the Lex themes. You know, the purpose of this homepage was really to be like a virtual lobby for people to come to, and not be inundated with tons of information off the bat, but just feel like, okay, I am entering the Special Olympics Canada hub and I have access to, you know, just very simple, quick links to, and I'll have Denise actually walk through this, but I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, the idea of this particular site was not to provide tons and tons of information right off the bat. It was to simplify the user experience for those people who are outside of the organization, who are volunteers, who are just within the chapters, within the various regions in Canada, to come here and have a pleasant experience. So Denise, did you want to walk us through kind of the lay of the land here? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, so what we're looking at is, you know, in the top left corner, we've got the Special Olympics logo. We wanted to make sure that we were on brand for everything. Of course, our communications team was very clear about that. And then what we're doing is a slow rollout across the organization. So as I mentioned, we have 6 different departments. And so right now we're logged in as kind of administrators right now. So if you logged in as a chapter right now, all that you would see is the sport button. That's the only one that would be available to you right now. So eventually, as we roll out to different departments, they'll see more and more options. And so the mega menu that I was mentioning is here, where you can hover over it and then see the different areas that you're entitled to see. So that was a really big selling feature for us on going this way, so that we could have our menu was customized. So we're going to go into the sports section in a bit more detail in a few minutes, but first we'll go just and scroll down a little bit and take a look at the screen a bit more. So we've got a hero image there, and then underneath the hero image we have a bunch of buttons that we were able to put in that take you to different sites across the internet that are internal to Special Olympics. So there's the Special Olympics website, there's our online learning platform is linked there. There's a couple of tools that are linked there that the volunteers need. So it's just a quick link spot for external pages. Then beneath that, we've just got a visual of the different departments that are available. Again, right now, only the sports is available for chapters and for volunteers. But this is where we will eventually have all of our departments located here. So then if we go back up, then within the sport button, you'll see we also have a collaboration button here. And so what that does is it takes us to a team site that we've created that is for all the chapters. And so what we needed, the overall extranet is a push site. So it's a place where Special Olympics departments can go in and post their information that the chapters need. But then what we became aware of was that we also needed to have some place where we could collaborate with the chapters as well. So can you go to the team site?
Yeah, I have it open right here.
Perfect. So we've just started using this, so it's pretty fresh. And so each department, or sorry, each chapter has their own team site that they can collaborate with us on. And then we also have a master one that is available for all the chapters and all the departments at SOC to collaborate together as a big group. So right now you'll be able to see, if you go into Ontario, there's a couple of notes and there's a couple of files that have been loaded right now that they're working on. The deadlines for those are coming up soon. So the site's going to get a lot heavier with traffic in the next little while. So so this is something that we're really excited about. And we've actually been getting a lot of feedback from the chapters already. So they've started using it probably over the last 2 months. They've been using it, and every time they get on a team call with the chapters keep on saying, "I love the site. I love the site. I love the site." So they're just getting into using Teams now. So we're looking forward to getting their feedback on that as well. But yeah, so far the feedback has been phenomenal. So now if we go back, we can go into sport and take a look at what the sport page looks like. So on the sport page, we also have quick links out to those buttons, the buttons that go out to the other sites that the chapters will need. And then underneath that, we have all the different sections of information. So the way that we sectioned this out was to sit down with the department as well as with chapters and figure out in what way do they think about information? How do they group pieces of information together? So we categorized it by different ways that the chapters think about information. So so there's piles of information here. We're not going to go into too many of these because there's confidential information in them for the chapters. But if we go to the one that we have hyperlinked there, that is with back to return to play, I believe it's called return to play. Yeah. So this is an example of when you get down to the level of we're in sport resources and then return to play. So then we can go into the chapters section and see the categories that are pertaining to return to play. So this is, we're planning already, even though we're not in a position yet of opening up our programs again to the athletes, we're looking at now planning for when that does happen. So these are all just the different categories of information. So I think if you go to international resources, you can see the different categories of information that we're starting to look at. So, you know, there's basketball would probably have been, we've been discussing with the National Sport Organization for Basketball in Canada and in, okay, so for their federation, they've been giving us resources to help us plan to go back to doing basketball again and to doing different sports again after the quarantine is lifted. So this site is getting a lot of traffic from the chapters right now. They're going in and getting information and then putting in requests for adding more information, and then our team can go off and find those resources that are being requested and then post them here. And so the chapters know to come back and look in this one spot. So it got rid of all of our Dropbox accounts where people didn't know what files were in which Dropbox account and that sort of thing. So now it's all localized in one spot. So it's very popular.
Yeah, do you want to touch on, you know, the craziness of your Dropbox environments? You know, how many Dropboxes you had? What were the challenges with that?
Yeah, and to be completely honest, I don't know how many Dropbox accounts there were. So as the director of information systems, that drove me crazy not knowing that. So not only did I not know how many accounts there were in the end, I didn't have, you know, passwords for them. I didn't actually have the authority or the ability. I had the authority, but not the ability to go in and get those accounts after people left the organization. So you know, it was like I say, you know, people would start their own account in their own name with their own email address. Sometimes they would pay for it. They would have a paid account, so it would be larger. Many times, though, they were free accounts. And just as people left, then new people came in, they would create another Dropbox account. And so these Dropbox accounts were just getting created willy-nilly with no management. And there was no way to, you know, oversee what files were going where and what files were getting sent out. And the chapters just had to keep track of which Dropbox account had which materials in them. And they often wouldn't. And so basically what ended up happening was they would, if they were looking for something, they would just email the sport team, and the sport team would probably email them back with a link to the Dropbox account to tell them here's the Dropbox that it's in. But often they would end up just emailing them the file that they were looking for. And so people never really got into using the Dropbox accounts even for what they were possible to achieve.
Yeah, and you can imagine, you know, all these different regions and all the different sports are trying to figure out, especially now with the pandemic, you know, going through the various phases in the various provinces and what you can and cannot do, you know, trying to coordinate all that communication according to your region, according to your sport, according to your requirements, according to, you know, your athletes' disabilities. You can imagine how frustrating that would be for everyone.
Yeah.
So, you know, a solution like this, you know, again, the reason that it is so simple, starting from the homepage, I apologize if you hear drilling in the background. I have construction going on. I apologize. But if you think about, you know, someone who doesn't actually visit this site on a regular basis, the simplicity behind it is really what we were focusing on. So the simplicity of a mega menu where people can really have a solid understanding of where they need to go the minute they get here. There's no confusion. There's no question about, am I going to find this information here? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. So having that confidence when they come here. So not only having access to all the information that they need as a coach or, you know, as a chapter, as someone in the different provinces, but also knowing that I can access my collaboration areas directly from here is really important, because these are users who could be on other platforms outside of Microsoft in their daily lives. They could be users of other tenants, and so keeping track of all of these things was really big concern for them. And so we tried to make this as simple as possible. And so they have essentially easy access to everything. And you know, this is basically the homepage for the site, but then you get into that second level of navigation, which again is just a reflection of the mega menu. So no matter how you like to navigate, how you like to find information, that was taken into account. That if you're a person that likes to click and drill down into things and kind of flow into where you're trying to find information, or if you want to access information right away, depending on your style, that was already taken into account for you. And the other thing I wanted to add was, you know, for now, this is just phase 1 of the journey, and we'll go into more discussions about the later journeys for here. But this was created as an extranet. Although it seems very intranet-y, it is created as an extranet with the hopes that it's going to expand into, you know, thousands and thousands of volunteers accessing this for their information that they require. And so the other thing I wanted to touch on was, you know, we went through the setup of the documents right now. So when I hover over the mega menu here, and you'll see that there's the level 2 headings. The level 3 is really where you get into the document libraries. So when I take you to the return to play view here, this is actually a document library web part with many documents and folders, but we're also using metadata to set up views. So if you actually click down here, you'll see there are multiple views here so that the views can be tailored to whichever page you've landed on. We've set up the views, we've pre-configured the views for the users so that it's very easy for them to navigate back and forth, and they're not struggling to navigate around. And you'll see that it's really simple and easy as they start to navigate, even though it may seem like a lot of folders. This is comfortable for end users, so we did decide to use this level of folders, but you'll see that as you drill down into the folders, they do have their breadcrumbs that will help them navigate back up the chain. And again, this is all permission trimmed, and we'll also begin to start to include the French language as well. So you can see that this is just the start of it all. But I hope that, you know, taking you into this environment and having you see the simplicity behind it is actually not a bad thing, because, you know, a lot of organizations go down this journey of implementing an intranet and they want everything right away. They don't want to go live until everything is on there and ready to go. And I really appreciate Special Olympics' approach in this phased journey, because they're taking it slow, but they're taking it slow in a very tactical approach. So
Denise, quick question for you.
Yeah.
It's kind of off script, but going back to Dropbox and you kind of being the director of IS, and you have to manage all these stray Dropbox accounts, which is a common problem for many organizations. You guys being a not-for-profit, can you just tell us about that whole, how important it is to get like all these features with the one not-for-profit licensing? You know, what made that, because now you kind of, with your not-for-profit Microsoft licensing, and then furthermore even Valo licensing, we get a lot of extra features that can replace features like Dropbox, and you know, we get SharePoint for shared documents, we get Teams for collaboration. I know that you guys are using Zoom and trying to transition to Teams. Can you just talk a little bit about that off topic?
Yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, a constant struggle, is the tight budgets that are involved in working with a charity. And so, you know, the day that you guys came back to me and said that Valo was offering to provide us for free with the software, I literally ran down the hallway to go and tell the CFO about it, because I was so excited. It just means so much to us that we can actually get to this point. You know, years ago we actually had, in an old iteration of SharePoint, we tried to do this sort of thing. and it wasn't set up properly, and it didn't have somebody that was shepherding it. They didn't even have a director of information systems at that point. And it really showed that, you know, it was done by our IT services provider. It was very small. It was not organized very well. It hadn't been done in collaboration with anybody. That just is the testament to how little finances there were to put towards it at that point. And, you know, when we were looking at, you know, how do we make the best out of the situation, you know, because we do have the Microsoft stack for free, it's amazing. So, you know, looking at the need for something to replace Dropbox, because Dropbox was driving everyone crazy. You know, we knew it was going to be SharePoint, but then the fear that I had was that we wouldn't have budget to do it properly, and to have a you know, a competent partner like you guys guiding us through how to build it properly. And then especially when Valo came along and offered up their product, it meant so much to us that we can get to a place where we're providing professional information out to our chapters, so that they can perform in a professional manner as well. It's you know, one of the pieces of information that's going to be on that return to sport is information about, you know, insurance. The whole country is on the same insurance provider, and so we're providing guidance for them on insurance. So, you know, just having a place where we can provide them with that legal information is so important, that, you know, and it's in a place where they can get to easily, and they can navigate to it, and are finding their way around it really easily. So it's I can't even describe how important it is to get away from stuff like Dropbox, where it's just kind of the Wild West, and get into something that's, you know, properly organized and architected.
Perfect. A little bit straying away to you, Shafina. One of the trickier parts on this project was the segregation of information from chapters and volunteers, because obviously all the chapters have some confidential information that we don't want volunteers to see, right? So how did you tackle that within this deployment? Because that was honestly, I think, one of the more trickier parts, to make sure it was easy to use for everyone, including the chapters as well as the volunteers.
Yeah, so there were a bunch of factors that we had to, you know, take into account. I have a message that I have bad video quality. Is that a true story? Can you hear me?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so there were a bunch of factors that we needed to take into account, and honestly, you know, the requirements that we thought we had pat down at the beginning of the project naturally evolved and changed as we met with more and more teams, and more people came up with new requirements. So we spent a lot of time understanding the security architecture, and you know, the end goal of this was to understand that our chapters are going to be accessing this information coming from so many different levels of digital literacy. So not everyone has the same experience using Microsoft products as we'd like to think. So making sure that, you know, the experience was really simple for them, where they didn't have to remember that, you know, I need to go here to find this, and I need to go here to access this because it's secured. And so, you know, when I show you the return to play, this part here, sorry, navigate back up to this level here, you know, we did have to trim security at the folder levels, but in such a way that it's not confusing to the end users. It's a little heavy for IT in terms of their management, but it's still not out of control because of the way that we architected the libraries and the various site collections. So, you know, combining the understanding of our requirements and the needs of the end users, we did have to, you know, trim the security levels and give people confidence that, you know, they know exactly where they're actually going to be uploading their documents. So yeah, this is where on the extranet, all the information is open for everyone for read access. They come here, they download the information, and they use it within their chapter regions. And then again, the collaboration area, that's the idea where we're going to have the chapters collaborating, and then eventually come up with a way for us to be able to publish that content. So yeah, there were some really tricky things that we had to iron out on a regular basis, but we did it. We made it through.
That's great. So back to you, Denise. With the COVID-19 pandemic, how has this changed the way of life for Special Olympics? Not only from a technology perspective, but from an organizational perspective.
Yeah, yeah,
Did,
definitely.
yeah, Special Olympics is delayed, right, for this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is suspended. So we've suspended all activities and all programs, including weekly sport programs, competitions, fundraising events, everything across the country. So the suspension affects 49,000 athletes with an intellectual disability and 22,000 volunteers. So what we're doing to, kind of work around COVID is that we're adapting and creating and expanding our virtual program offerings to combat social isolation and foster community engagement among our athletes and volunteers. So our top priority is to ensure that the athletes remain safe, healthy, and active at home while feeling connected and supported. So we're doing a lot of online work right now. So we're starting to use Teams for some of that. In terms of how we communicate as an organization, the level of communication between Special Olympics Canada and the chapters has increased. And that's in order for us to support them in their needs at this time as they're, moving to doing things virtually and also working on the return to play. But the nature of our federated model means that we've actually always been communicating long distance to our chapters. So in this way, the extranet that we had already been preparing to launch was perfect timing. So, we had started to launch it in, kind of January kind of thing, and then it really started to come on over the next couple of months. And then as COVID hit and we really needed to rely on each other a lot more, it really came into heavy use. So it's been interesting because in some ways COVID hasn't affected us that much in terms of how we work with the chapters because they were always remote to us anyway. But the level of communication, the amount of communication is much higher now, and we're using Teams. And the thing that's been great too is using Teams chat. And being able to use Teams chat in between the departments or among departments and then in between departments, but then also to the chapters as well. So, instead of sending an email or doing a phone call, we're doing chats to each other, through the extranet site to get information and to give information to the chapters. So it's been phenomenal, a phenomenal help during this time.
Great. So Denise, being a charity, we assume that it's very important to continually raise donated funds. In fact, my team showcased Microsoft Teams live events to your biz dev team. Can you describe what type of broadcast events your organization does and how this is becoming more important given the social distancing guidelines?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big event that we have every year, we have two large events every year. One is a fundraising gala that has been canceled for this year, but then we also have our awards night that we do. What we do is we have an awards night where we celebrate our volunteers and athletes and give out awards for excellence in performance, but also in teamwork and citizenship and that sort of thing. So basically what we are looking at doing for that is using Microsoft Teams for the awards ceremony. That's what we're going to be, that's how we're going to be broadcasting it this year. So we're going to be getting into that. It doesn't happen until November, so we've got a bit of time yet, but that's what we're going to be working on next. The chapters are also starting to use Teams a lot as well in terms of reaching out to their athletes and that sort of thing to keep in contact. So in terms of fundraising, we're off limits for fundraising right now, but for our awards night, we're going to be using Teams.
Yeah, I was actually at one of your partner events earlier today and did a great job. You had some great celebrities on the show like Rod Black and some other people there, so it was really cool. For anybody who's just on the call today, which website can they go to possibly help your cause?
Specialolympics.ca is our website, and on there you can find out information about our programs and all that sort of stuff, and then you can also there's also a donate button as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so just a few more questions left. So Denise, what are your goals? Like, what is the next phase of your journey to modern teamwork look like internally at Special Olympics Canada, as well as with your external stakeholders like your chapters, your coaches, your athletes, and volunteers? Like, have you started envisioning what the future looks like for modern teamwork and this going forward?
Yeah, definitely. Like I've said, sport is the only department that's actually on the extranet so far. We're rolling it out department by department. So we're going to be rolling out comms. So that's coming up in the near future. But then moving forward from there, we're going to be rolling out to each of the departments. Will have their own section, including, finance, where they can have information on, financial reporting and stuff like that. So there's that. And then there's also the fact that when we roll out to the other departments, that opens up that communication with the chapters to Special Olympics Canada. So right now, other departments are still using email, or some of them are probably still using Dropbox or other file sharing systems. So what we're looking forward to in the future is a time when we find that everybody is doing their work through the extranet and through the Teams collaboration sites. And like I'd mentioned, we're already starting to do that. We hadn't been using Teams widely at Special Olympics Canada, and now with quarantine, that's become prevalent in most departments, and we're slowly rolling that out as well. Because it's so much easier to just send somebody a quick text that they can get back to when they have a moment than it is to write a formal email. For some reason, it's, you can have that short form in a text that you can't in an email. So that's what we're really looking forward to, is just increasing the communication through these tools, and letting everybody enjoy the ease of communication that comes with having a good, well architected site, that they know where to go and find information, and they know that no matter what they need to find out, it's going to be on that site. And then with the collaboration tool as well, then there's the working more closely together than we have been.
Thank you. Shafina, do you want to do the last one, or?
Yeah, I guess to wrap things up, we're right on time here. So Denise, our last question, and especially for the audience, as we've embarked on this journey together, why don't you share some lessons learned or some advice, anything to let people know, what to watch out for, what to think of, what not to do, what to do, anything that you can tell them.
Sure. I've done a number of implementations over the years. And so, one of the first things that, you learn when you're doing these kinds of implementations is, talk to the end users. Don't just talk to the people that are paying for the system. So, like we started off talking to the sport department, to the leads of the sport department. And then, we also talked to the chapters themselves. One thing we didn't do is bring in volunteers. So I'm sure that when we roll out to volunteers, we'll hear some feedback that that we'll go, oh, we should have gone out to the volunteers as well. But just making sure that you do go to the end users that are going to be using it. So for us, it was the chapters. But then also as well, going to that department and having a group meeting with the whole department was really useful, because there were things that the team in that department needed that we didn't know about when we started to build. So, we worked with the heads of the department, and then we worked with the chapters. And then once we started to roll out, then people were like, hey, this is really great. Could you also add a collaboration port? And so we were like, oh, okay, we didn't think we needed a collaboration part because they had told us that we didn't need that. So when we had to go back and then kind of reverse engineer adding the collaboration perspective to it. So it pays to just make sure that you're going out to your whole audience and getting that perspective on not just what the functionality is, but also how they think about their data and how their data is organized in their own heads, so that you can organize it and do the architecture in a way that's going to make sense to them. Because the way that the most important thing is making sure that the information is where they go to look for it, not where you would go to look for it. So it's to make it successful, you need to make sure that you're having a customer-oriented perspective. So I think those are the two, going to your customers and getting the feedback, and then also going to the team and making sure that the people that are going to be using the tool get a chance to talk about what their functionality is that they're looking for as well. Because especially once you start to create something that's as great as what Creospark and Valo has created for us, it gives people ideas that they didn't necessarily have at the beginning of the discovery period. And so people are like, oh, it can do that. Well, can it also do this? So it really opens up what the possibilities are for you. So that would be my advice. And it seems pretty elemental, but even on my 10th implementation or whatever I'm on, we fell into that trap a little bit. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Amazing. I'm so happy that's your piece of advice, because that is, the message that we try to instill in all of our clients. It's still a struggle to get that message across to a lot of organizations, but I think it's becoming more widely accepted now that IT doesn't embark on these projects on their own, that driving this with the business, partnering with the business, just like you'd partner with your customers or whatever product you're providing your customers with, you want to provide them with what they want. So why not do the same internally? And so it's so important, because they're going to be using the system. So your success depends on them. So why not partner with them? I think that's the best advice that I could hear all day. I feel like I could go home now, call it a day. I'm home.
I thought so.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we had scripted for you, Denise. But in the audience, I'm not sure if anyone else has any specific questions for Denise that anyone wants to challenge her with, or with Creospark or Valo. The floor is open.
Yeah, feel free to either type your question in the chat, or as said, just raise your hand with the button, or just unmute yourself and start talking. We have plenty of minutes still time for this. Anyway, on behalf of Valo, as I said, it's really an honor being part of this journey, and being for you guys. I mean, the product does enable certain things, but achieving this information architecture where the users find and intuitively arrive to a place that they are looking for, that is an achievement, and it takes a lot of footwork. So
yeah,
congratulations for all parties involved here.
Thank you.
Great. Maybe just in closing, we just want to thank Special Olympics and Denise for being such a great client, and it's been a pleasure to work with you, and hopefully we have many more years.
Great. Thank you so much. Likewise, it's been fantastic working with both of you guys as well. So it's we're extremely lucky.
Perfect.
Awesome. So thank you, everybody. And in exactly 13 minutes, we will continue on the same channel. So we will have customer Harvard Development talking together with our partner Solvera. So again, we will continue with Canadians here, and they will talk about how they have transformed their intranet into a functional and sexy digital workplace. So looking forward to that one. And have a little break, and we will continue right here. Once again, thank you guys.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.